In this video, we are talking about straw phonation exercises. Oren, the creator of this straw called OB1 SOVT straw, will share his favorite SOVT exercises with the straw. And if you stay until the end, he will even share the future of this fantastic tool for voice users. So, stay tuned. Hi, I am Katarina, speech-language pathologist, and here on this channel I share practical tips about using your voice in a healthy way. So, if this is a topic that interests you, consider subscribing to this channel and hitting that bell notification icon so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Last week I sat down and talked to Oren, the creator of a tool for voice users. We talked about the benefits of straw phonation, about the science behind it, and about different types of SOVT exercises you can do with a straw. If you haven't seen that video, I will put a link to it in the description below. And I will also leave a link to Oren's website so you can check out what he's doing. This video is part 2 of our discussion about straws. And let me tell you, I learned something new. Oren is going to share his favorite straw exercises with us and more. So, let's learn something new, shall we?
So there are hundreds of exercises you could be doing with this straw. What is your favorite one? Do you have one favorite exercise?
I don't have one favorite. I have two. I have two that I really like.
Okay, so
but even that's a bit of a cheat. That's a bit of a cheat because one of them has like 2 components. But the first one is breathing drills. And the reason why I say that is because if you kind of strip away everything else about the voice, you know, the stylistic requirements, the acoustic requirements, if you strip everything away, it fundamentally comes down to a power source interaction. So just like a computer or a phone is powered by electricity, and if that electricity diminishes, then the device becomes unstable. It might need recharging, it might not have enough power, that kind of thing. So I strip all of that away with the voice and I look specifically at the airflow and the breathing and the respiratory mechanisms, because that is fundamentally the thing that powers the sound. So my favorite go-to exercise, one of my favorite go-to exercises is breathing drills. And so for me, I know I need to take the attachment off because otherwise it's too much pressure. So I've just taken that off. But what I do is I cycle through different patterns of breath to engage and energize the core systems and the respiratory systems before even adding sound. So it looks a little bit like so like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, just blasting some air through the straw. What you do there is between, like, as you switch between the quicker breaths and the longer sustains, you allow the vocal folds just to get used to different airflow requirements across different back pressures or different back pressure sustains as well. And then from here, I mean, you can do anything. You could do like a it's like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You could even like wrap everything together. So you can do you can do a bunch of different things. So that's
that's a very, very good tip. I actually never used straws for just breathing exercises. So that gives me a great idea. Excellent. And I just want to say that your straw, when someone buys your straw, it comes with a membership site. So people who have this can get access to some of these exercises that are on your website. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what we have is there's a bunch of tutorials on there of me kind of teaching the science and how to use the device. There's then piano tracks and videos of those exercises with demonstrations. as well as like a printable exercise kind of poster guide type thing. So yeah, there's plenty of content to assist in that initial step of these are kind of like the recommended suggested things you could be doing to build into like a daily vocal exercise regime with straws.
So what's your second most favorite exercise?
So, well, the second component to the first exercise, because I think it's really important to have that step in scale. I would do exactly the same thing and then switch between voiced and unvoiced. So you can then do and so you can switch between, you know, so just bouncing between voiced and unvoiced across those same breathing drills, and to allow the vocal folds to get used to letting that airflow through and then using that airflow to vibrate and oscillate and produce sound, then stopping and letting airflow through, and then you kind of repeat this process. So that's the second component to the first exercise. But my next sort of second favorite go-to exercise that I think you can, the reason why I've kind of selected these is because you can do them anywhere. You don't need a piano, you don't need anything else, you just need your instrument and a straw. And so revving the engine, and some people also call it hills and accents. And essentially what you're doing is you are riding up across a small collection of notes, then bringing it back down a little bit, then riding up to a different collection of notes, and then you can do this on repeat. So it's a lot harder to explain than it is to demonstrate. So this is kind of what it is. You can go high, you can go lower, you can bounce around different collections. And I love it because it's just so accessible. You don't need any kind of prior knowledge of like musical playing. You don't need to play a piano, you don't need anything. But it also gives the voice such a good workout, such a good stretch across small little collections. You get that kind of stretch, and then you shift everything up, and then you get a little bit more stretch, and you shift everything up, and you get even more stretch.
Oren, I have a question here. I have a question for one of my students, and I would like to read it to you and hear your opinion on it. Okay? So she writes, SOVTs continue to help me enormously after I finish them and begin to sing normally. The notes come out with such great facility. They sound better, they ping, they are easier to produce. What is it that this continues to be the case after I have taken the SOVT obstruction itself away? Is it that the vocal folds have learned something themselves and thus behave as if there was still the SOVT background of their own accord? Or is it that I have learned something about how much airflow is needed and I'm actually, without being conscious of it, pushing less air through the folds, allowing them to meet and act more efficiently, or something else? I thought this was such an insightful, great question. So what would your answer be?
It's both, actually. There's a little bit of both at play, in that the effects do persist after the intervention has been taken away, but also much like you go to the gym and strengthen the body for an athletic task, the vocal folds learn to have that athleticism built into them. So it's a little bit of both.
This student, this person has so much insight into her own body, her own voice when she's using the straws.
Which is actually a key component as well. It's because these are essentially subjective measures. It is really good to have that physical connection and that understanding of the sensations that the body is feeling, so that you can be more in tune with how well they're working.
You're very passionate about the science behind it, and I know you've been working away on improving this fantastic tool. So what's next? What's in the future? How are you going to improve the experience even more? Because I know you've been working on it.
I have, yeah. So there's a few things I can talk about, and there's a few things I can't talk about, which actually I think is even more exciting. There's stuff like, there's things in the works that nobody can know about yet, just because there's like certain like patent and legality things around it. But of the things that I can talk about, the first thing that I have been doing is creating a fully mathematical model of how the straw works across every single possible resistance setting, so people can come and they can look at a nice looking graph and say, okay, this size tube or straw or configuration of our SOVT straw offers this in terms of resistance, and then they can scale it all the way until infinity, I guess, and they can decide what configuration suits them best. So that's kind of like the sciencey stuff that we're working on. Informed by that, then, we are getting set to release 4 new attachments that go onto the SOVT straw. So the way we designed it is so we can continually upgrade and offer new features and benefits. So it comes with obviously a 3mm, what we call ARA, aperture reducing attachment. And so the new attachments, they would fit onto the end of the device. The first is what we call a VRA, variable aperture reducing attachment. And it kind of is exactly as it sounds. You will be able to twist the device in order to open or close more of the aperture. And so it goes from 4mm down to 0. So you can basically tune it to get an insane amount of resistance if that is what you prefer, which is like, it's cool. So that's one of the new attachments. The other 2 of them are actually pretty simple. One of them is just what we call a J-bend. And so one of the problems we've noticed is when singers use the straw with water, they're going like this. So they're bringing their whole head down and moving the straw so it's straight, just so they don't spill the water everywhere. And going like this, obviously you can hear immediately this has changed the way I sound, but it's also restricting how the larynx is able to move within the vocal tract and a bunch of different other things. And so the J-bend basically is an attachment that goes on the end that just brings it up to an almost 90-degree angle, so you can use it in this orientation to make some bubbles in the water without having to compromise your posture. So that's an attachment.
I think that's a fantastic advancement of it. Last time when we spoke, and it wasn't that long ago, you told me about 1 attachment, and now we are into 4. So you've been really busy.
One of the other attachments is, okay, this is a weird one. It's a balloon attachment, actually. And so it's a piece. This isn't it. This is a little bit of a prototype of it. But it's a piece essentially like this. The SOVT straw will thread onto here. This is huge in comparison. It will not be this big. This is a prototype. And a balloon will be able to kind of come onto the end here, grip the end, and then inflate outwards, which allows us to change the fundamental dynamic of the exercise. But I think it's going to be a really cool addition that is just going to allow people to be more in tune with their bodies, but also train specifically the respiratory systems in a more athletic protocol.
I always learn so much from you, and I love how I feel your passion just through talking, and you showing us what your straw can do and will do in the future. So thank you very much for talking to us, and we need to have you back when you can tell us more about the things that you cannot share with us today. So hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be my pleasure. Hopefully sometime soon I'll be able to talk about it, and you'll be the first to know. And we'll jump on here and we'll talk about it, and we'll get people really excited, I think.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Let's do that, okay?
Thank you so much for having me today. It's been so fun talking, and I love when we get together and have a chat about the nerdy science stuff that, you know, students perhaps don't want to talk about. So it's nice to actually talk about it with somebody that is as passionate as I am.
Oren, thank you again for sharing your passion with us. I really look forward to seeing all of those attachments to the straw, and I'm definitely going to try the breathing exercises with the straw that Oren introduced to us. What about you? What was your biggest insight? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video useful, click the like button and share it with friends who may benefit from this information. Check out my other videos on the topic of straw phonation, and I will see you soon. Bye!